Hey freaks, it's Monday, March 13th, and this is our 30th podcast.
Wow, podcast number 30.
Yeah, big 30. I wondered if we'd ever last this long.
We have. We made it.
We made it. It's pretty cool. I think a lot of podcasts don't make it past like 10.
Yeah.
Sadly. But
burnout, yeah.
Burnout, or it takes time to get people to listen to you.
It does.
And I'm still surprised people listen to us.
I am too, so thank you all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And welcome.
We're very happy for this to be our big 30 podcast.
Definitely.
So, wow, we got a lot of stuff going on this week. Maybe a shorter show. Probably not one of our last week 2-hour and 3-minute shows, but who knows, right?
Well, we don't have an interview this week.
Well, we kind of do.
We have a segment
right.
with Nell, but we don't have our usual interview at
That's
the end.
Right.
So
well, we do have some shout-outs to give. First off, we need to thank Chris, who uses the name VMD on our forums. And Chris was kind enough to give us a fairly sizable donation.
Mm-hmm.
And in exchange for that, we were able to get one more piece of equipment.
Yay!
Yeah. So we still have one big piece to get. So we still need you. Really, the big piece is quite a big piece. But Chris asked us to name our headphone amp Jimmy after. For whatever reason, he wants it named Jimmy.
Because he names all his stuff Jimmy.
Right. So this is Jimmy the headphone amp.
Yes.
It's the headphone mixer amplifier HM54 named Jimmy.
Excellent.
So it's no longer HM54. And we had another shout out.
Yes, we need to thank Sarah, who I think is the same Sarah who we have a voicemail from later on.
Wonderful. And she was kind enough to send us some money in the mail.
Yeah, so thank you.
If you want to do that, you can send us stuff at P.O. Box 276, Colton, Colton, New York, 13625. And we would love to get stuff from you in the mail, even if it's just anything you want to send us, really, unless it's dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, the post office doesn't like that.
I don't like that.
Well, of course. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we're doing. And we also got a last minute donation from Gary at Animal Writings.
Ah, cool.
So Gary was kind enough to give us a donation, and he only wanted a shout out if he thought it would help the animals.
Okay.
But I think it will help the animals,
think so.
Because if people know that folks are donating to us, and it maybe gives them the impetus to go out and donate a little more to us, so we can try to create more vegans and try to help people go vegan.
Yeah.
It's kind of a convoluted way of putting it. But anyway, if you're out there and you're thinking about subscribing, we do still need some subscriptions. It would still be very helpful to us. We're thinking about financing the last piece of equipment, just so we can get it sooner rather than later. And then we would use subscription payments over the course of a couple, probably more than a year, or about a year, to pay for this last big piece of equipment and server fees and things like that. So if you're thinking of subscribing, we could still definitely use it, and we appreciate it. And if you're still thinking about donations, we could use those too. And in the coming week, we will do another private podcast.
Yes,
for the donators.
We will.
So actually, that'll probably be during the week of the 20th. We'll have one of those out.
Yeah,
and
later in the week.
And if you've been a subscriber, we'll let you know when that comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we need to thank all our subscribers once again. And the first round of buttons went out finally.
Mm-hmm.
So I mailed them. So you should be getting them soon if you haven't already.
That's right. And we get them out as we get them out once a week or so. We're getting better at it than we were in the past.
Yes, we have.
So we really appreciate the subscriptions. They mean the world to us, and we thank you all for that. So I don't know. What else do we have?
That's about it.
Okay.
Oh, I think Satan wanted to say hi.
Oh, yeah. He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Well, here he is.
Okay.
This is Satan, and just got back from my meeting with Dick Cheney, and thought I'd pop in and say hi at the Vegan Freak podcast. Glad to hear you're out there all going vegan and trying to stay away from consuming more souls than I do.
So there you go. That was a little Satan. He gave me a call the other day, and he's like, hey, Bob, I want to get on. I would like to say something on the show. And I said, look, I don't want to give a platform to the Prince of all Darkness. I don't think that's cool. And Satan was like, I'm just a misunderstood kind of guy. I'm a vegan, and I believe in animal liberation, and I have a lot of fun torturing people who don't. So, Satan's down with the cause.
Yeah, good.
So it's good to have him on the
All
show.
right.
So there'll be more
Good to
Satan.
hear.
Yeah, I think we have another audio segment from Satan coming next week.
Okay, cool.
So for sure. All right, well, let's move in. We don't normally do news, but sometimes we hear a news story here and there, and they sound so good that we can't ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
And well, not good. I mean, we
Interesting.
Interesting
For some reason.
Yeah, we hear about them and we want to talk about them. And one of these that we heard this week was really a sad story, actually.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm talking too much.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I want you to say.
Well,
something.
you have the story right in front of you, so.
Yeah, I know, but
I'll say something after we read the story.
You will?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, this story, this comes from signonsandiego.com, and it says, father and son die in manure pond at the dairy where they lived. It says, this is from Grangeville. A dairy worker and his 8-year-old son died in a manure pit after going out at night to feed the calves at the dairy where they lived. Luis Gutierrez, 27, and his son Luis Armando Gutierrez ventured out on a dark, overcast night Saturday to check on the animals and apparently stumbled upon the manure pond, investigators said. Manure pond. It doesn't sound quite so disgusting that way, but it really...
Mm-hmm.
A pond.
Mm-hmm.
Footsteps and signs of slipping near the edge of the 10-foot deep pit seemed to suggest one of them might have fallen in, Kings County Sheriff Alan McLean said. We could see the dad seemed to be doing what he could to reach his son, McLean said. But this stuff, if you step in it, it sucks you in. When Gutierrez and his son didn't come back, worried family members called on the Contente family who owns the dairy and the sheriff's department for help. During an all-night search, investigators and the dairy's owners found Luis Gutierrez's stalled pickup truck with its hood up. The father and son probably got out of the truck and tried to take a shortcut home. And so it goes on to kind of talk about how they fell in the pond, and it talks about the father and son, how he's from Mexico and wanted to provide a good life for his kids and things like that. Mm-hmm. It also says here, the Contente and Gutierrez families live near each other and close to the enclosures holding the cattle that they handled every day. With fewer than 1,000 cows, the dairy is small compared to some of the operations in the San Joaquin Valley, which can have tens of thousands of animals.
Wow.
They have 1,000 and that's small.
Yeah.
That's intense.
That is. That's crazy.
That's kind of insane, don't you think?
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, there's that kind of insanity, and then it goes on to also say that they may have not drowned, but may have been overwhelmed by noxious gases that were emanating from the mixture, and they go on to cite a couple other cases where other dairy workers have been overwhelmed by the noxious gases in these manure pits.
Yeah, it's methane.
Yeah, it's methane, right?
Yeah.
And so they often pass out and then drown in the pits, and I just thought this was really sad.
It
It's
is
like,
sad. Yeah.
I mean, on the one hand, it's weird, to die in a pit of shit. That's really kind of a tragic way to go, number one. But number two, the fact that there are so many animals in that intensive confinement, and they have to selling all that shit. So where does it go? It goes into a pond along with, all the manure and rainwater, and it becomes this kind of muck.
Yeah.
And, I'm not saying that it's a massive danger that people are apt to stumble into pits and die, but it gives you a sense of just how crazy these things are and how much manure is being produced when we factory farm. And where does all that manure go?
It sits there in pits.
Unless you live along the Chesapeake Bay or in Pennsylvania, and it goes into the Chesapeake Bay.
Well, anywhere you are, that's one of the major problems of these large-scale dairy farms, or even a small-scale dairy farm, is that you have the runoff from the manure in general, and it pollutes the groundwater, it pollutes the rivers, and it kills a lot of fish, and it's not good for humans, animals, nothing. It's not good for anything.
That's true. It's just horrible for everybody involved.
Yeah, and that article reminds me, we were talking about a while back about the human costs of cattle, and I think we're mostly talking about slaughterhouses, but this is the human cost of dairy farms, is that, not just the lives of all the dairy cows that are slaughtered after they're done, and it's the human cost too. It really is.
We need to really keep in mind that human cost, I think, all the time, because I believe at the root of it all, right? There's a definite struggle on both fronts, right? There's a struggle against speciesism, there's a struggle against exploitation, and I think the two things are deeply related.
Yeah, and of course you notice that this guy wanted to provide a good life for his son, and where is he going to get a job? He can get a job at a dairy, he can get a job at a slaughterhouse, because, they're hiring frequently because there's a high turnover rate, and, it's good money for a while, and it's really sad that they have to work in these conditions that are noxious fumes or high injury rate in a slaughterhouse, and it's the minorities, it's the immigrants, the people who they get to do these jobs. And even around here, I've heard that a lot of the dairy farms around here hire illegal immigrants or immigrant labor.
Yeah, it's true.
To do that, so
it is. It's kind of insane.
Mm-hmm.
So, just another example of that, and quite sad.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Well, what else?
You wanted to talk about the salon column that has been on our forums. So,
right.
Yeah. Someone wrote in.
Right. This is the
salon.
There's this advice column.
Yeah.
On salon, and the advice column is by Carrie Tennis. What is the advice column called? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I don't either. But this Miss Anthropy posted this on the forums, and the article is called "I'm So Vegan It Hurts." And the byline is, I'm becoming increasingly militant in my vegetarian activism, and it's causing me to be isolated and depressed. And the person writes in and says, that she was, I assume it's a she. I don't know. It sounds like a she when I read it.
I have no idea.
It could be a male, it could be a female, who the hell knows. Anyway, the person says, I was recently reading David Foster Wallace's essay, Consider the Lobster, and it got me thinking. The essay is about Wallace's thoughts at the Maine Lobster Festival, and more importantly, the ethics of eating animals in our society. I respect David Foster Wallace, and his essay was lacking the usual pedantic bent that such topics usually take. In short, he was honestly trying to ask if we should continue eating animals without knowing the answer himself. This essay did not get me thinking because I eat animals, but quite the opposite because I'm a militant vegan. I've been a vegetarian for 14 years, half my life, and a vegan for the last 5 years. The issue is not one of nuance or complexity, but is rather immediately wrong to me in the way that slavery is wrong, rape is wrong, and the death penalty is wrong. That is why reading this essay by someone I respect gave me pause. I do not personally know your stance on the issue, but I know enough that your stance will affect how you respond to my letter. My problem is that I am finding it harder and harder to function in this world where animals are slaughtered and consumed. I go to the grocery store as little as possible, considering I have often simply cried when I am forced to walk down the aisles containing the flesh of once living creatures. And that is kind of tough to do.
It is.
When you think about it.
I have to turn my head in the grocery store.
Well, speaking of the grocery store, when we were in the grocery store the other day, we walked by. We have that one aisle we have to walk down to get to the rest of the store.
Mm-hmm.
We were walking by this case where all these there were like frozen turkeys in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I counted right off the top of my head. I could count 12 of them.
Mm-hmm.
As we were walking by, and I was like, "That's 12 souls there."
Mm-hmm.
And yet people are pushing this cart around, and it's like 12 carcasses there. It's 12 souls that were killed. It's 12 individual beings. But anyway, I'm a militant vegan, so what the hell do I know? So she goes on to say, I only date other vegetarians or vegans, and I've mostly surrounded myself with friends who are vegetarian or vegan. I certainly could feel some of that.
Mm-hmm.
So the person goes on to say that they weren't really that way, and he argues that they've become shrill and pedantic. And they feel like they're being pushed out of the radical activist community, and that they're having some difficulties with that. And so the response that the advice columnist there gives is kind of weak, I think. I mean, I understand where the writer's coming from, but the response was almost like, we adopt our beliefs based on the fact that we have certain psychological needs to fulfill. And so adopting an approach to animal rights is about fulfilling your own kind of psychological need. And in a way I get that, but in another way that's almost kind of dismissive. Right?
It is, and it goes everything against that we talked about last week with Melanie. In fact, what most people need is to be able to shut that off and to be able to deal with the world, and that we have to negate those feelings to be able to survive in the world. And as vegans, we've turned it on, and that we have realized that there's this connection between the death and the animal and the thing that's in the supermarket. And so I don't think it's a psychological need. In fact, it could be damaging to us.
So and so. The other thing is like it's almost as it's so dismissive. It's almost like saying you're against racism. That's just because you need to take care of people. Mm-hmm. That's just because you need to feel a place in your heart where you're, it makes you feel good to pay attention to justice. Mm-hmm. What the fuck does that mean? Yeah. I found the response kind of annoying.
Well, I honestly don't think that a non-vegan would really understand that much.
You think?
Not in the same way that a vegan answering that question would.
I think you're probably right. I know our lives have changed quite a lot since we've gone vegan. I mean, I don't know. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I thought his answer was kind of weak, number one. And number two, that some of the table talk in the follow-up there was even worse. Mm-hmm. Some of the things that were coming out were just really, really just some of the most backwards, half-assed things I'd heard about veganism in a very long time, about animal rights.
Mm-hmm.
Salon is supposed to be one of these magazines that is, kind of remotely of the left.
Mm-hmm.
They have anti-Bush stuff in there and all this other stuff. So you go to Salon, you kind of expect a little bit of a liberal bent.
Yeah.
But the responses were more conservative than some of the things I read on conservative websites about veganism.
That's really a shame.
They were, in fact, more ignorant than some of the things I've read on conservative websites about veganism. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, I'm going to offend somebody probably by saying this, but I think a lot of people on the left don't like to be outflanked in terms of radicalism.
They don't like to be outflanked?
Yeah.
Really?
What do you think?
I think that it's more that the people who are sort of left, but not really left,
Mm-hmm.
don't like to seem like a freak.
That's probably
and,
true.
We're considered the freaks, is, the whole basis around our title of our show. And whereas we're embracing that, a lot of people don't want to be seen as a freak. They want to be their views to be seen as normal. They want, a Democrat for president because they want that to seem normal. They don't want to. They don't want to distance themselves from us, and they don't want to seem as radical as we are.
I see what you're saying. I agree with that too, though.
Mm-hmm.
So they either want to kind of push us overboard and go, "Oh, I'm not as weird as that person.
Right.
I'm not nearly that weird."
Right.
I don't know what it is, but the response really bothered me. And I think also that often, people who are active in progressive causes give you the most shit about veganism, in my experience.
Yeah.
Because I've had people say to me who are active in left causes that I'm active in, say things to me like, well, tell you what, I'll care about animals just as soon as we fed all the people in the world, And I say to them, what are you, a fucking jackass? And that's not what I said, but that's what I wanted to say. My argument back is that, caring for animals, caring about one form of oppression does not mean you automatically give up all other forms of caring about oppression,
Mm-hmm.
And that one usually stymies them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You get into these things where they are arguing, well, we can't care so much about animals because people are suffering so badly. But there's another part of me also that thinks, and I know that some of you will probably bother by this too, but I think people have the ability in so many ways to fight back.
Mm-hmm.
They have the ability, and I know that this is contextualized by various positions and that people work hard and that some people can't fight back.
Mm-hmm.
But people have more agency.
Mm-hmm.
Even the person with the least agency has more agency than a farm animal.
Yeah.
And so I think people have the ability to fight back, and I think that animals don't always have the ability to fight back. More often than not, they don't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even people with very little agency can at least find other people with little agency, and the more of them, they can fight back together. I mean, it's very, very difficult, of course, but the animals can't do that.
Right, they can't. They really can't. I mean, despite cows with guns, right? They can't. They can't pull, the Che move,
No,
So that's why I think it's important to fight for the rights of animals, and that's why I think it's important to struggle for animals and for liberation and for recognition that what's going on is something we really need to pay a lot of attention to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm bothered by some of those responses. And the other thing I want to talk about is those of you out there. Do you find that the more you've gotten into kind of veganism, the more you've gotten into activism, perhaps, and that activism can be anything from like the tiniest little thing up to massive campaigns. Do you find that the more that you've gotten into activism, you found that it's consumed your life in a way that makes it difficult for you to be with non-vegan people? Do you find that being vegan has changed you so much or changed your philosophy about the world so much that it's difficult for you to be with non-vegans?
I bet you the answer for a lot of people would be yes. I mean, in responses to this whole thread on the forums, that people were saying that they could really identify with the person who's writing that letter, and that we see a piece of meat, we see the suffering, right, and that makes us really sad, and especially, and it can get overwhelming when you know how many animals are killed every year, and it can seem overwhelming. So
I guess the issue is, though, how do we avoid? I think it's really important for vegans to be out in the world, So how do we avoid kind of sectioning ourselves off into this little cult almost? I don't want to say cult.
Well, I think it's beneficial for vegans to be around other vegans because it makes you realize that you're not alone. I think that's important.
I agree.
Because that can really help your psyche too, to understand that you're not the only person that feels this way, because you can really be isolating to think that you're the only one out there that cares.
The other thing though is I really like being around other vegans.
Yeah, because they understand where you're coming from.
Well, we don't have to talk about it that much.
Yeah.
We talk about it, but we don't have. I don't have to explain every little tiny thing to them. You know, I don't have to feel defensive. I don't have to feel like I'm in a weird spot, you know? Whereas when I'm around non-vegans, I don't feel all that weird. I don't really fucking give a shit what they think, you know? Like if someone gets on my nerves too much, I'll tell them. Right. Because that's kind of the way I am. But I mean, in a sense, it's just like, it's almost easier. It's not, you don't have to, it's not such a big deal. Yeah. You know? So it's, I don't know. I'm curious to hear what people out there think. I mean, I know what the people on the forums think. It would be nice to have a voicemail or two about that.
Yeah, sure.
At 267-295-1944. So it'd be nice to have a voicemail about that, to hear what you all think about that. And do you find yourselves becoming more, you know, not isolated. I don't know if that's the right word, but
saddened. I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's always a touch of sadness to it.
Of course. Overwhelmed. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always a little touch of sadness to realization that bring a lot of us to ethical veganism. I try not to be sad about it, but, you know, on the other hand, there are things about it that are quite sad when you realize, you know, 10 billion, 11 billion animals a year in the U.S. alone, 40, 50, 60 billion in the world. I don't really know the numbers for the world. That is saddening. I mean, that's kind of depressing. So on the one hand, there is always this kind of saddening dimension to it. But, you know, I always feel like I have to keep doing things. And that's why we do the podcast. I mean, I feel like that's what I felt like I had to do this kind of stuff. Yeah. I feel like I had to write a book about it. I feel like I have to run the forums. Right. Because this is the way in which I work through it. Right.
The important thing is that you don't get too overwhelmed or burn out. And, you know, taking a break once in a while can help. Remembering that, you know, you have to take care of yourself occasionally, but also remember that there are other people out there doing great work as well. So I think that's really important to remember.
It is, and you have to take care of yourself. I think it's important. Yeah. That was something that came up on Eric Steiner podcast this week. That's true. So in the last couple segments, last couple minutes there with Mama Shmoo, I think as Eric calls her. She advocated. She says she likes to play the drum when she's feeling down. So. Well, anyway, I don't know. So the burnout thing got me thinking in that article. All of it together kind of got me thinking about this, and I thought we would throw that out there. Yeah. So, but I think it is important to be active in your life. I mean, I think your activism could range from anything, you know, as small as cooking something.
Definitely.
For friends and family, to get them to find out that vegan food is in fact not repulsive. All the way up to organizing a national campaign, if that's what you can do and have the energy and time to do. Yeah. So anyway.
So cool.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm thinking of changing the order of our things here. Maybe we should talk about, since we're talking about the movement. Yeah. Maybe we should talk about the thing you wanted to talk about movement on all fronts.
Yeah, let's do that.
It seems to fit better.
I think you're right, actually. Well, I was thinking the other day that I think it's really important that the animal liberation, animal rights, whatever you want to call it, animal protection, whatever you want to call it, that the movement itself is fought on a variety of fronts. Like, I think that there are certain places that we can focus a lot of energy, but I think that in general, we need to focus energy in a variety of places in order for us to be effective. We need to focus not only on, for example, farm animals, but we also need to do campaigns when it comes to, you know, to lab animals. We need to do campaigns when it comes to rodeos. We need to do campaigns when it comes to I don't know, what are the other
circuses, Class B dealers,
things like that. Yeah. In other words, I think we need to have a dispersed focus that looks at the various places where animal exploitation is taking place, and then we identify those places and work hard within each of those segments to kind of defeat the overall overarching kind of problem of animal exploitation. And this reminds me a lot of what Gramsci advocated for a movement, for a social movement. You know, Antonio Gramsci would say that a movement, to really be successful in the kind of society we live in, needs to be fought everywhere. It needs to be fought in the home. It needs to be fought in the family. It needs to be fought in the school. You know, and I think similarly, we need to fight this movement on a variety of fronts as well. I think it's really important that we do that, and that's why sometimes I get kind of dismayed when I see vegans kind of attacking other vegans, right? Or I see animal rights people attacking other animal rights people. And I'm guilty of this too, you know, in some ways. I really shouldn't be so critical of some parts of the movement, but I also think it's important that we think about how, as an overall strategy, we approach it. And I think that in terms of an overall strategy, it's really important that we keep fighting on all these different levels, bringing these things to the fore and making them clear to people.
I think it is extremely important as well, because it really does demonstrate, if you're doing it all fronts, how vast our animal use is. That it like really permeates every aspect of our life. It goes from what we wear to what we eat to what we buy to our entertainment to our family and friends. It really permeates every level of our lives. And being vegan makes you realize that, but not everybody understands the level to which animals are being used and being killed by humans, and how this, how our relationship really is with them. In
another way too, we're constrained as people. As vegans, we're constrained by a society that is at its core speciesist. There are choices that we would make that we can't make because of the way society is structured. If I had the choice, would I drive a car that had tires that didn't contain animal products? Fuck yeah, I would. If I had that choice, but I don't. If I had the choice to take medicine that I would need to save my life, right, that didn't use animals, would I do that? Yeah. But sometimes you have to take something that is tested on animals, right? If you want to live. I mean, last year I got pretty sick at one point, and the doctor said to me, "You need to take this in order to get better." And I knew any drug is marketed, any drug is tested on animals, and so I took it. Would I have preferred to have a world in which I could take it without having been tested on animals? Hell yeah, I would prefer that. But the world itself is structured, everything is structured such that we can't avoid speciesism, even at certain points. It's like we live in a society that is sexist and also white privileged. You can't avoid white privilege. You can't avoid sexism, even if you want to practice it in your own life.
Yeah.
And you can't avoid some of the benefits of it too if you're a white male. And in the same way, we have no choice in some parts of this. So I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking that we need to fight this on all fronts. It needs to be clear, and it needs to really challenge the overall kind of structure of animal exploitation in our society.
Yeah. But yeah, going off on what you said, but I've heard other people tell stories about friends of theirs who said, "Well, I can't be perfect vegan. I can't make an impact on every aspect of my life." They hear what you were just talking about and sort of get overwhelmed and say, "Well, and then I'm just not going to do anything." And people get like that. But I think it's important to remember that by being vegan, by not buying clothing, not made with animal products, by not eating any animal products, that you can make a huge impact. Because those are the two biggest areas, really, in terms of farm animals, for instance.
Absolutely.
So I think that people shouldn't get defeatist about it.
That's true too, and that's why I actually think that activism is healthy. That's why I think it's good for vegans. I mean, I know it's frustrating and depressing at times and things like that, but I think also that being active and getting out there and doing stuff is a good way to kind of fight that not apathy, but that kind of feeling of dread that you have no control, that you can't do much, things like that.
But just being a good example for others is a really good place to start.
That's true too. It is.
Yep.
So I don't know. If you have any thoughts on that, we'd like to hear them via email or voicemail, or you can send us, if you want to send us files or anything, you want to send us big stuff, you can send it to bob.torres@bobtorres.org.
Yep.
That's BOBTORRES. So you can send that to us. I can take up to 50 megabytes there.
Cool.
So if you want to ever send us anything, that's the way to go.
Okay.
Or you can upload comments on our website at podcast.veganfreak.com, up to 10 megabytes.
Nice.
As MP3 or AIFF. So,
okay, cool.
But yeah, we'd love to hear from you on this. I don't know what the rest of you think. Maybe you think I'm insane.
It's entirely possible.
Maybe, I don't know. But kind of heavy this week. I guess I've just been thinking about these things.
Yeah, sure. Well, how about we go to a song to lighten the mood a little bit?
Why don't we do that?
Okay.
So, all right. Why don't you do the song?
Okay, this song is by a group called Humanifesto. Do we know who we got this song from?
Yeah, it's from Plant Eater.
Ah, Plant Eater.
Yep.
Okay, and the song is called Artificial Need. And there's some really pretty heavy lyrics on this song, too, actually. Spend their lives living in cages through the ages, all for you. All your selfish wants and desires, not thinking what you put them through. And now all I want is for the children's lives not to be spent behind bars, in prison to feed your endless greed. That's really good.
All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
There's the last stanza is really good too. I've seen the fashionistas sporting corpses on their backs, their fur and flesh of lives they've thrown away, and all the leather jackets and those rock and blue suede shoes aren't fucking cool, they're fucking cruel. That's awesome.
Indeed. So thanks to Planeteer for this, and here it is, Humanifesto. Okay, so that was Humanifesto, and the song was called what?
Artificial Need.
Artificial Need. That line about the fashionistas being cruel.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. That's a really good line.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. I have to apologize if I sound a little out of it. I'm kind of tired.
Yeah, me too. I'm a little spacey today. I don't know why.
The problem is this, is that every other school in the world has had their spring break already.
Except us.
Except us. We have not. And it's starting to wear thin on everyone. The students, it's like, man, they are just dead. Mm-hmm. And the professors are dead. And everybody's just feeling kind of like,
Yeah, the week before break's always the hardest.
It's kind of rough. So, but I'm really looking forward to break because on Monday, a week from today, we are going to Ithaca, New York.
I can't wait.
And we're both getting tattoos.
Yes.
Matching ones. No, I'm just kidding.
Definitely not.
I'm getting Jenna real big on my chest.
No.
No, I'm not.
No. Like they said on the L Word, it's the KOD.
Kiss of death?
Of death.
Yeah. It may be. I don't really know.
It's bad luck.
It could be bad luck. No, I'm beginning a sleeve on my right arm. A beginning. Uh-huh. So it'll take a while. And what are you getting?
Probably a peony.
There you go. So, very cool. We're looking forward to that. That's going to be a good week for us. And, if anyone's in the Ithaca area and you are interested in going for coffee or something, get in touch with us.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to meet some listeners.
Eat in a restaurant. Yeah. Oh my God. We can't go out to eat around here. Well, we can. It's really crappy, but
it's tough. It's tough around here. Yeah, there are actually restaurants there we can eat at. So I'm looking forward to that. And That'll make me feel a little better. We'll be a little more lively next week. Though we should say we're going to try to get a podcast done over the weekend.
Yeah, before we go.
And if we can't, we'll be late that week, and we'll put up a post if we're going to be late.
Yeah.
So we may be late, but we may not be. We will get a podcast out that week, though, and a subscriber podcast as well.
Yes.
A special one with lots of Satan and perhaps a robot. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's move on.
Okay.
I think we want to talk about this important step in becoming vegan, do we not?
Yeah, but we also have If You're Not Vegan Yet segment.
Which do you want to do first?
I don't care.
It's up to you.
Okay.
Our outline's for shit now.
Yeah, I know. I've deviated.
What will we do? Remember when we used to podcast without outline?
Yeah.
That
we
was kind of
don't really
interesting.
have that much to talk about.
I went back the other day and listened to the first one or two podcasts. I found them on my iPod in this weird place because they weren't labeled. The MP3s weren't labeled right, and I found them in this weird place, and I listened to them. The first one, the volume is so low. It's like, you can barely hear it.
Yeah.
And we're kind of weird. So, anyway, yeah. The archives are all available, by the way.
We've come a long way.
We have indeed.
We used to share a mic.
We did. That was horrible.
That was bad.
Yeah, it was really bad. And Jenna used to get mad at me, and I used to get mad at her, and we used to argue with each other about who had the worst breath. Well, if you're talking a lot, you're not drinking, and
Yeah.
you know your mouth gets dry. It doesn't like we have really bad breath or anything. I just like to bother Jenna. So, well, why don't we do the If You're Not Vegan Yet
Okay.
segment?
Yeah, we haven't done one in a while. So
We have, and we know we have a lot of ovo-lacto listeners.
Yes. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with this segment, we like to sort of give you a little bit of food for thought. That if you haven't thought about this yet, if you maybe don't know about it yet,
Vegan food
for thought.
Because
yeah,
I think vegan food is really important.
of course.
Because anything else would be not vegan.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just said that again. Not vegan.
Right. Okay. So speaking of not vegan, I found some information about down.
Not vegan.
Not at all.
Okay, I'll stop now.
Okay. Because, a lot of people think, oh, well, you're just going to kill the ducks, anyway, the geese, and, well, then you'll just get the feathers there. But there are actually quite a lot of feathers that are taken from ducks that are killed, or chickens, or whatever, mostly ducks and geese, that are killed for other purposes, like foie gras, which is also...
Oh, not vegan. Sorry.
There you go. Okay. Enough on that. All right. Anyway, but a lot of because they like the down that's from the softer down that doesn't have the quills, which is better for use in pillows and whatnot, they pluck them while the birds are alive. Not cool. Not cool. I get this information. Some of it's from PETA. Some of it's from United Poultry Concerns. Sorry about that. And they have an article linked here. Beauty Without Cruelty charity in England has obtained color video evidence of live plucking of geese for feathers and down on Hungarian factory farms.
Oh,
the video shows terrified birds being lifted by their backs and then having all of their body feathers ripped out. The frantic geese struggle to escape, causing strained muscles and sometimes broken limbs. Veterinarians and even geese breeders call this practice extremely cruel, particularly the plucking itself and the tying of the birds' legs over their back. Rippers are paid piece rate, and therefore speed is of the essence. Experienced rippers can rip up to 5 ounces of down in 3 to 4 minutes. An average pillow takes 1.5 pounds of filling. The Hungarian Feather Association confirms that 25,000 tons of goose feathers are exported annually from Hungary, 95% of its total production.
Damn.
It estimates that 50% of the down and 40 to 45% of the feathers are live plucked. The remainder come from slaughtered birds.
That's really fucked up.
Yeah. And then it goes on to say that geese normally live in small family units and mate for life, living up to 20 years and flying long distances. And then they're just being ripped out. And,
that's horrible.
Yeah, I know. And then there's this article, a link to a study by veterinarians, actually, that conclude that they, veterinarians have studied, these are not vegan type people who have studied this and who say that the geese feel pain, that this is an extremely painful process.
Sure. How could they not?
Yeah. So, this is all the sort of scientific stuff. Nociceptors, pain receptors, have been identified in the skin of several avian species, including ducks, geese, and chickens. The follicular wall of the feather is richly supplied with general somatic afferent sensory fibers, and nerves are present in the papilla, pulp, and feather muscles. So, there's a lot of force required, and basically their conclusion is that it does hurt them.
That's
a
horrible.
lot. That is horrible, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, you think about that. You're ripping the feathers out of an animal while it's alive.
Yeah.
And on top of it all, it's like any other byproduct, right? Even if the animals aren't killed specifically for the feathers, it helps make other products profitable.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And yeah, there's a definite tie between foie gras and down. And, and it goes on to say that, like, synthetic fillings are actually better because they're warmer, they're easier to clean, they're more durable, they don't, break down when they get wet.
We
talked about this before.
Primaloft, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's just really disturbing that we still use this because is it chic? What? I don't know.
It's probably cheaper.
Probably cheap, yeah.
I mean, down stuff isn't that cheap, but it's probably cheaper to produce it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So bigger profit margin.
Exactly. That's really sick to do that to animals. I don't know how people do it. I really don't.
I don't either. It's just disgusting.
So if you're not vegan yet and you believe that down isn't one of those big things, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, animals are having it ripped out of them while they're alive more often than not.
Yeah. So I wanted to include something about down. We normally talk about things like dairy and eggs, which are the obvious. But, I wanted to talk about that because we remind people that, being vegan is more about than what you eat. It's about what you wear and what you buy.
Absolutely.
As well. And this is one thing that's easy to avoid. So
it's very easy to avoid.
Yeah,
you just have to be conscious of it. That's all.
Yeah. And if you have any, down things laying around your house, use them until they wear out or replace them sooner, give them away to other people.
I don't know. I find that kind of morbid to have that stuff around.
I do too.
In a way. I mean, we still have some.
I know.
I really want to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Just because I know what it is and I think about it and it really bothers me.
Yeah.
It's just sad that you don't realize how much you take for granted when you don't care about this stuff. You just go out and buy whatever you want.
Oh yeah. I used to think that down was really cool.
Yeah.
My psychological workings here. My sister was allergic to down growing up, and so we never had anything down in the house.
Oh.
And I always saw this as something,
luxury.
A luxury item because, oh man, I never got to have this. So when I grow up, I'm going to go buy some.
Right.
So I did. And now I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot.
Well, you can only hold yourself responsible for so long for what you've done in the past. You just can't think about it all the time. You can't live your life like that.
Yeah.
So down, one of those things.
Yep.
Another thing we want to talk about, I think, we want to talk about what I think is an important step in going vegan. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about this though, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking about this the other day. I think we were just talking about vegans who are still tempted by things like cheese and everything, and even what might get some people who have been vegan for a little bit of time to eat cheese. And I think, and it made me think about my stepping away vegan, and now I find those things disgusting. And I think it's an important step for you to make to really think about how gross these products are. To make them so that when you look at them, they really just disgust you. So not only to think about, how bad they are really for you in terms of health-wise, and think about milk, pus, cheese, mucus, because you eat it. And,
it's also a concentration of pus.
Exactly. And, meat's a lot easier because it's just bloody and gross.
I think you're completely right. This is why I think actually the going vegan cold tofu is really a good way to go. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, it's like you can stretch it out long enough and you tend to forget. It tends not to be that important. And I think, cutting it out as soon as you can and going from there is the easiest way, because then you actually, I think after a couple weeks, and I think it only really took us a couple weeks to really not find that stuff interesting anymore, for me. And we had, when we went vegan, it took a while. But I began after a pretty short while to see cheese, which I liked a lot before, to see it as kind of a problem. Mm-hmm. And when I was craving it when we first went vegan, I remember thinking, how bad do I want this cheese? Do I want it bad enough that an animal should have spent all the time that it spent somewhere in a dairy producing this? Do I want it that bad? Would I, if I had to do this myself to an animal, would I do this? And I wouldn't, And I had to do that in order for me to set up what was the right situation for me to go vegan. you know, and I had to look at it that way. And when I was tempted, and believe me, when we first went to vegan, I was tempted.
Well, cheese is addictive.
And not just cheese, I was tempted by other things too. I was tempted, and I looked at it and I thought, you know, it's just not worth it.
Yep.
It's not worth it to me. You know, it is such a small thing to give up in the whole scheme of things in your entire life. It's such a tiny thing. And I know it seems huge for some of you, maybe that are having a difficult time with it, but really it's not that big of a deal, you know? And I think one of the things that you wanted to point out here was that it really is important that you think of it as, you think of that cruelty every time as well. Not just the disgusting aspect of it,
but the cruelty. Yeah.
But the cruelty aspect of it.
Yeah, because I think that more than anything will remind you why it's so important.
I agree.
You know, think about that animal that had to suffer for you to eat, just to eat it because you like the taste.
Yeah, I
think just thinking about that and thinking about the dairy cows and the veal calves and all of that stuff that goes with eating dairy and the pork, the eggs, you know, the hens that had to suffer just for that egg.
You should try to visualize it in your head. And there's a great little book. This great little book is by, we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago.
We did, yeah.
This is Hold Fast, Sisters and Brothers. It's from I Like Apple Juice Records and Media. And the author's Travis Nichols. It's a little tiny book. It's like business card size, right? But it's really cool. If you go, it's www.ilikeapplejuice.com. And there's a little, it's like a little booklet basically about veganism. And the booklet's really cool. We'll put a link to it in the podcast show notes. We'll also put up 4 pages from the book just to show you what we're thinking about. And so it talks about veganism, but it also talks about how basically there's always temptation. So, and it talks about this temptation and says, okay, here's a better example. The following events took place on September 13th, 2003. And there's a little character there, and he's sitting there eating an apple, you know, and the little character, you can see a little apple in his hand, says munch, munch, munch next. So it's really cute. And then after that, the little character walks over to the table and goes, oh, someone left out half a cinnamon roll. There's a little cinnamon roll there on the table, and the little character looking at it. And he walks away, and the cinnamon roll's still there. And then he comes back, you see him peeking his head into the frame, and there's a cinnamon roll there. And so he says to himself, I could take just one bite. You know, he's thinking, well, I could. And then the next panel is him thinking about all the cows. It's like him in a little thought bubble, and the thought bubble is full of cows. And then the next frame is the thought bubble full of cows going into a stockyard. And then the next frame is him saying no. And I think it's really good because that's exactly what I think. That's exactly what I think is the best way to do it, right? You got to think about those animals that are out there producing this stuff, you know, or being killed to produce this stuff for you.
Yeah, and it's not just important for those who are considering going vegan and who are at the initial stages. I think it's important as well for long-term vegans who might have forgotten. Who it's, you know, for people who's, it's become a habit for certain people just to be vegan and just to not eat this stuff. And then, so sometimes you might think, oh, well, what's one bite? What's one meal? Yeah. Because you know, you don't think about the reasons you initially became vegan. I think it's important to remind yourself once in a while, you know, this is why. I
think so too. And the other thing that was really interesting too is I always wonder about ex-vegans, you know, if you feel this way about it and you go vegan, it is something that I feel like is part of your character in a way, or part of who you are at the deepest cores of who you are. You know, it's more than just simply a dietary choice, right? It's a choice about how you will live your life and what that says about you as a person, you know? And I read the other day or a while ago that someone knew somebody who was vegan for like 20 years or something and then went omnivore. How do you do that? Like, how for 20 years do you decide to be a vegan and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm going to be an omnivore tomorrow? That's really weird.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I don't get it either. And I get why people go ex-vegan. I mean, I understand that. Because some people get into veganism for, maybe they're into it because their friends are into it, or maybe they're into it because they think it makes them look different and cool, or maybe they're into it for whatever reason. And so people sometimes get into veganism for reasons that don't keep them in it. So I understand that. But 20 years, you don't do something for 20 years just to please somebody else. And not like that, right? Right. So you don't do it for 20 years just because you think it's cool. So what after 20 years, I wonder, made that person go back? But I think, again, you know, just to use this example from Hold Fast, Brothers and Sisters, and I you know, this guy's vegan. You should go order this thing. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool little cartoon zine type thing.
It is awesome. Yeah. And it is really worth every It's like $2 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a cheapo. Go order it from them. Support the vegans.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You should really support other vegans.
I agree.
Because it's good to support vegans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you're supporting vegans, we aren't going to spend your money on, leather or wool or anything like that.
Right.
Yep. Just, I think as Josh said on the forums once, what do we spend on? Cocaine and high priced hookers. So,
Cocaine's from a plant.
that's where. Yeah. Definitely not vegan though.
No. Okay.
That's
Not
where
vegan.
that's where all of our all the subscription money goes to.
Yeah. Oh, right.
That's right.
No, it goes more like to tofuti cuties and Yingling.
Beer and ice cream. Yeah. Well, beer and soy.
Soy cream.
Hey, soy delicious now. What is up with that? So delicious.
So delicious.
Are they afraid of the word soy?
Apparently.
What is this? I always hear people who are telling me like, I'm afraid to eat soy because it makes you girly, or I don't know what the hell, or it gives you cancer. I hear this all the time. It makes me want to kill people. I know.
Not vegan.
But
the thing is, most people are eating soy every day and they don't even realize it because they put it in everything.
well, that's true.
And everything processed has at least some soy in it.
No,
I
that's
mean, it's
quite true.
crazy how much. I don't understand. That I think would be a tough allergy just because they put it in like soy lecithin or however you say it. They
Yeah,
put
it's
that
in a lot of
everything.
stuff.
So
I don't know. I also get frustrated with the people who think all I eat is salad and tofu.
yeah.
They're like, oh, you must really like salads if you're vegan. I'm like, I like salad, but I don't eat salad that often. Like, I don't eat salad every day. And so people always think I'm eating like salad and tofu. That's like my, the other day, my students were kind of curious. Like, what do you eat for breakfast? I'm like, cereal. They're like, oh. I think they expected me to say some kind of exotic thing,
Right.
But so they were actually just genuinely curious. They weren't being rude.
Yeah. You can tell the difference usually.
No, you really can. They asked me, what I eat in an average day. And they're just curious. They really just want to know because a lot of them are contemplating going vegan.
Mm-hmm.
The experience I had with the class this year is so much different than last year. This year, they're so receptive and open to the ideas of animal rights, And last year, it was basically 18 people and ganging up on the vegan, which was me, right? So last year was actually great because that's where I learned all the different kinds of things that they'll come up with.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably where I had the fullest expression of the plants have feelings debate. We spent an hour and a half during one class period discussing why it is that plants don't have feelings. It took an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. And they still, I argued them. I explained to them, you take a plant, you take a pig, you stick a hot poker in a plant. Does the plant scream? No. Does the pig scream? Yes. Well, how do you know the plant isn't feeling pain? How do I know? I know because I took plant physiology in college, and plants don't have pain receptors. You look at a pig, they have a central nervous system, much like we do.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, how do you know? How do you know that the plant doesn't feel anything? I'm like, look, all right, so we let that go for a while. I said, look, if this is what you really think, if this is how you really feel, then if you're that concerned about pain, you should eat plants. Well, why? Why should I eat plants? Why shouldn't I just eat meat? Because in order to produce meat, those animals have to consume something. And what do cows eat? Cows eat plants, So if you're really concerned about plants, you shouldn't be eating cows because they kill a lot more plants to produce the meat that you're eating than you would if you killed the plants directly yourselves. And that's the moment that the mouth comes open and a little line of drool comes down the side, and they're oh, So, but anyway, this year's much better. So
Good.
right, yeah,
Email.
yep.
You've got mail.
Okay, let's see here. Cialis? No, don't need that. Bigger bus size? No. Free iPod? Oh, might do that. Oh, are you pleasing your woman? Well, I better ask her. Oh, well, what's this? Vegan Freak email? Vegan Freak email. Yes.
All right, so we got a couple emails this week.
Yeah, a couple. We got a couple more that people ask questions, but I want to wait till next week to answer those because we need to do a little bit more research.
We're gonna have Sarah Kramer on next week too
Oh, cool.
to answer one of these questions.
Nice.
She we had her on before, and she agreed to be our go-to girl. She called it
Okay.
her term, not mine, for some of our more difficult questions, perhaps.
Cool.
Or more interesting questions.
Cool.
So every so often we're going to have her on to answer a question. So I think next week or the week after we'll have her on. Depends on her scheduling. She is traveling. She's like a jet setter. She's all over the place.
She is.
She's in Toronto, I think. So anyway, all right, well, I'll let you go first, Jenna.
Okay. This one's from Tim. Tim says, I stumbled across your blog and then got into the podcast. I am a runner that likes the long stuff and have been taking all of your old shows out on my runs. That's a really good idea.
It is indeed.
Well, I have to say that it really helped me with my attitude about being vegan. Before, I was almost ashamed to tell people I was vegan, like an isolated freak. But now I'm a freak in good company. Belonging has made a great difference to me, so thank you for providing that. So, thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for
awesome.
that, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, and we like to provide camaraderie for the freaks.
We do. I like to think of what we're doing as just providing company for folks that maybe don't have a lot of vegan friends or know other vegans. Mm-hmm. Or even if you know other vegans, I mean, why can't we be two of your vegan friends?
Yeah.
We're nice.
Yeah, we are.
Generally speaking.
We don't bite unless you ask.
Jenna. Dirty. Yeah. Excuse me. A little bit of lung earth balance there. Okay. This one's from Carolee. And Carolee says, hi there, Bob and Jenna. I was listening to your most recent podcast, and what Bob said about his decision to go vegan really connected to me. Sometimes I feel out of the vegan mainstream because for me there was really no emotional reason for wanting to be vegan. I wanted to be vegan because I am against unnecessary suffering. I don't need meat and animal products for my survival, so it is purposeless and therefore against my morals. It was logical, not emotional. You helped me feel a little less weird, and I appreciate that. Well, thank you. You helped me feel a little less weird too, because when I talk about the non-emotional stuff, people usually look at me like I'm on crack. Anyway, listening to your podcast has really helped me make the decision to finally go vegan. Awesome, Carolee. That's what we want to hear. And you hear that, subscribers? You want to support veganism? Send money our way. No. After hearing a recent one, I finally decided enough is enough and decided to go vegan then and there. I know I'm pretty early in it. I've been vegan for a bit over a week, but it feels comfortable and easy. I know I'm making the right decision for me, for the animals, and for the earth. Thanks so much for all the great info, the discussion, and support. And that's Carolee.
Awesome.
Who is also known as Green Tea on the forums.
Cool.
So we want to thank you for that. We're glad we could help you go vegan. If you feel like you need more help in going vegan or you have particular questions, you can always call the voicemail line. We could use some voicemails.
Yep.
As always, 267-295-1944. So that's cool. And for me, it was a logical decision to go vegan. I felt like if I don't want to inflict unnecessary suffering on other beings, this is what I had to do. It's like, it was a logical thing. Like emotionally, I feel for animals, right? But for me, it was more of a setting up a logical consistency. Mm-hmm. So, and it's cool to hear that.
Every time you say that, I keep thinking of Vulcans.
The Vulcans, yeah.
Well, they are vegetarians.
They are indeed.
Well, it's because it's logical.
Well, it is logical.
Of course.
I mean, who needs meat to eat to live?
You don't?
You don't need meat to live.
In fact,
Therefore,
it's worse for you.
It's worse. So why eat meat? Mm-hmm. You don't need to. You don't have to. What good does it do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We have one last email.
Do it.
It's from Caitlin. She says, on one of the previous podcasts, there was a statement that playing a string instrument using the arco technique wasn't vegan due to the horsehair used in the bow. However, there are synthetic bows out there which are completely cruelty-free. Most are made of fiberglass and have a pretty good tonal quality and are cost-effective, and you can get them in cool colors like green or purple. That's cool. Just for all the vegan string players out there, just ask your local instrument care person to rehair, which you should do every 3 to 4 years anyway, to use a synthetic fiber.
Well, there you go.
There you go. One more vegan alternative.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And we should... Oh, my.
That was the
That
dog.
was the dog, yeah. He's laying on the floor,
us.
and all of a sudden, I have no idea what that was about.
Oh, he's just comfy.
Yeah, well, that's good. He's a very vocal dog.
He likes to grunt.
He grunts a lot. So he's a grunter at heart. Mm-hmm. And like if you pet him nicely, he like grunts for you. It's like he's like it's like he's into it, really into it. Right. So I don't know. We're done with the emails, right?
Yes, we are.
Drop the phone, it'll save you a tenner. Send an email to Bob and Jenna.
Time once again for some vegan freak voicemail. Maybe we'll hear from a hot chick.
or a choice male.
Callers make us happy and help us keep our sanity, even if all they wanna do is fucking complain about the shitload of profanity.
Okay, so yeah. For those of you that hate the theme, sorry to do them back to back like that. Some people every so often someone writes in and says, "Oh, I wish you'd cut the themes out of the show and all sort of stuff." So I cut a couple themes out here and there,
And people complained.
and then people were like, "I didn't know what part of the show we were at. You played the closing theme first." And yeah,
But
so
the majority of the people, I'd say 99% or more, like the themes.
a lot of people like them. Yeah, I forgot also one thing I wanted to say. Claire
Yeah.
on our forums left us a very nice review on Amazon.
Oh,
And we need to
cool.
thank her for that.
Okay.
She's one of the people that was confused by the new theme layout last time. So thanks for that, Claire. And I haven't checked our iTunes reviews in a while.
I haven't either.
Oh, you know what else? Podcast Alley. Thank you for those of you that are voting
Yes,
for
it
us
pushed us
there.
into the top 50 again.
I think it's important for us to be in the top 50 because it helps bring people to the show.
Yeah.
And we have converted people that way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like an evangelical minister. Go out and find me people to convert, like David Koresh at Waco or something. Well, not quite.
No,
I don't
let's
expect-
hope not.
Yeah. All right, so we have a couple of voicemails for you this week. 3 different voicemails. And which one are we going to do first?
Well, let's do Connie first.
All right, well, here's Connie.
Hi, this is for the podcast. I'm Connie, and I've been listening to your podcast for a week now. My teacher just gave me an essay on the topic of why should animals be used in biomedical research. It's funded by the Biomedical Center of Research or something like that, and the winners get prizes. Of course, she gave that to me on purpose, and so she wanted to know if I wanted to do an anti-one. So, of course, I thought, sure, why not? Anyways, I need some good sites and, make up a good essay to give them a piece of my mind. So, I love your podcast. Bye.
All right, thanks, Connie.
Yeah, we really appreciate it, Connie.
Yeah, and I know people on the forums have already responded with some really good sites, mostly among them the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, who talk a lot about alternatives to biomedical research using animals.
But can I say something?
What?
This is absurd, though. She has to write. Now, the school itself, they have to write this thing about why.
It's a contest.
Yeah, I know, but isn't that kind of like a fucked up contest?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like an intrusion of essentially, it's like a lobbying effort in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she's having to write this thing, and she gets to write the opposite way, but here's a school, having to do this essay, and I'm sure it's paid for by one of the big pharmaceutical foundations in where she lives and all this other stuff. So it's really messed up, I think. I mean, I just feel like it's helping to establish the dominance of medical testing in schools.
Of course. I mean, the dairy industry does that. They give teachers things to use in the classroom.
True.
They're funded by the dairy industry.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to say that before I forgot.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The other good site that people mentioned was the American Anti-Vivisection Society. And the biggest argument, I think, out there as to why, using animals is that it doesn't work most of the time. The biggest example is thalidomide, that Gary posted on the forums, is that in animal testing, it worked fine, and it was great, and you started giving it to humans to use, and it caused major birth defects. I think another one was even penicillin, is that originally they tested it on animals, it killed the animals, and it actually postponed the marketing of penicillin to Molly. He's chewing on my chair.
Not good.
Anyway, it had postponed the marketing of penicillin, which was quite useful, obviously. So,
Yeah, I would also recommend this book that we've discussed here before, which is Sacred Cows and Golden Geese, and it's by C. Ray Greek, MD, and Gene Swingle Greek, DVM. You could probably get a copy of this somewhere. I mean, I don't know, in a library.
I'm sure in the
for
library.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
A good library would have it.
Mm-hmm.
And this book, actually, these two folks are, Gene is a DVM and Ray Greek is an MD, an anesthesiologist. And so the two of them have actually done animal experimentation in the past, and they came to realize that it was kind of a fraud. And so this book is about why it is a fraud, some of the problems with it, and it actually uses peer-reviewed studies to argue why it's a fraud.
Nice.
So it uses science's own tools against it,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I think, one of the complaints that vivisectors always have about, well, you don't understand the science. It's like this dismissive, you don't get it, and, talk to the hand kind of shit. And I'm really bothered by that because it's true, I may not understand every possible use of animals, but many of us can understand this stuff if we sit down and think about it and read it carefully. So this book does a good job of that as well. I think it's really powerful.
Yeah. Excellent. I was going to say something and now I totally forgot.
Well, one of the quotes on the back of the book from Carol Adams says, "In this comprehensive, compelling, and troubling book, the Greeks make one point absolutely clear. The necessity is not animal experimentation. The necessity is to stop it." And that's what this book is about.
Excellent.
So I'd recommend that.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Make sure you cite your sources.
Always cite your sources.
Always cite your sources.
That's right. That's good policy in general.
Yes.
All right. So we hope we helped with that. And I know you got some stuff on the forums, and there's always more there. So let's go on to our next one.
Hi, Bob and Jenna. This is Maggie. I am calling from a campus in upstate New York. How are you? I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm actually on a cell phone. I hope this comes through okay. Anyway, hey, I just got a big fat professorship someplace, so I'm happy. I'm moving up in the ranks. I was wondering how you guys mixed academics with veganism. I know you don't like to talk about this that much because, academics are boring and probably, I don't know. But maybe not to seem elitist, but I really want to know, Bob, how you got that kind of class, how you teach such a cool class. And Jenna, I think you do Spanish literature, I think you mentioned, or something, right? Anyway, I'm going to be teaching something more akin to that in the humanities, and I don't know how I would mix it with my classes. As a teaching assistant, I'm pretty quiet about my political views in the classroom. But I hope with my newfound authority I won't have to be. Anyway, just wondering, I also promise when I make more money that I will become a member and will subscribe as of next September. You guys have been keeping me buoyant for the past year, so keep up the good work, and I look forward to donating and hearing more about your work, if you don't mind sharing. All right, bye.
Thanks, Maggie.
Cool.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first or should I?
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, I do Spanish language mostly, and Spanish linguistics, although I do teach the occasional literature course. And in my classrooms, it rarely comes up, just because, I spend most of my time talking about other things. But I do wear my herbivore t-shirts to class occasionally, in the warmer weather anyway. And so nobody's ever asked me about them, though, which is kind of odd. I would have thought somebody would have.
You did talk about them in your class, didn't you?
But it has come up occasionally. It's interesting in my Spanish language class, and I think I mentioned this on the forum somewhere, that one time we were doing this exercise. It was actually an exercise already in the book, and we were practicing pronouns of some sort, and they had to come up with sentences. Okay, carrots. Would a vegetarian eat this? And they would have to say, yes, a vegetarian eats this, or no, a vegetarian wouldn't eat this. And so they were doing the exercises in class, and in small groups, and I'm listening into what some of the groups are saying, and they're going on, chicken. Would a vegetarian eat chicken? And some of them saying, well, I know some vegetarians that eat chicken. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to step in. Yeah. And I'm like, no, vegetarians don't eat chicken. Then they're not a vegetarian. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And then they came up, oh, well, are you a vegetarian? I'm like, well, I'm a vegan. And they're, oh, wow, you don't eat anything? I'm like, you get the whole line of questions like, oh, you don't eat dairy? No. You don't eat eggs? Oh, what do you eat? And then this other student was like, wow, it's like you're a real live vegan? Like they actually said that. I couldn't believe it. So it does come up occasionally, and I answered all their questions and everything. Mm-hmm. But rarely, most of where I comes in is just talking to students individually about it. I have a couple posters up in my office, and that's about it. So it doesn't come up too much for me.
For me, it's a little different. I'm in a discipline that is inherently activist, and the discipline itself is really about I'm a sociologist, right? So my discipline is about understanding society, and it's often had a very critical edge to it. So a lot of what I do in terms of understanding the way society functions can be applied to pretty much any kind of social institution. So in the past, I've taught classes on food and society, in which we look at the production and consumption of food, and that's a natural place to establish some stuff around vegetarianism and veganism, and to talk about some of these issues. And in fact, teaching that class a number of years ago got me thinking, about my ethics and where I was coming from. So teaching that class actually was one of those things that got me in a place where I felt like I was ready to make some decisions to go vegan. But with regard to the class that I'm teaching now on animal rights, it is in a program where you have a lot of freedom to teach pretty much whatever you want, even if it's outside of your field. And so I'm fortunate enough to teach in that program. It's in a first year program. So in that, I'm able to teach pretty much anything, right? And it goes through a review process and things like that, so it has to have some content to it that is sensible. But the goal of the course is to teach argument and research. And as long as I can teach argument and research, it doesn't really matter the topic. And so in that class, I've been able to do a lot of the animal rights stuff. In my other classes, though, I tend to teach international development. My focus is on food and agriculture. And so I am able to use a lot of that focus to drive some of my work and some of my teaching in ways that is critical of the food system and draws into relief some of the problems with it. So it's kind of a natural for me to do this.
Yeah. So, and you mentioned something about your newfound freedom, and I just, one word to the wise is wait till you have tenure.
Yeah, that's true too.
You're still, once again, low man on the totem pole, low woman on the totem pole, person, whatever.
Yeah, my advice to any assistant professor out there would be to keep your head down until you have tenure. Just work and keep your head down.
Yep.
And I did I listen to that advice? No. Did I have a hell of a time? Yes. I don't have tenure yet, so I will in a couple of years, but I don't yet. So for me, it's really easy to kind of do it. In terms of doing it in more explicit ways, it can be hard, and you don't want to end up with the accusation of being a partisan. Mm-hmm. And in the academy now, it's so dangerous because the right is kind of ascendant these days, and it creates this discourse. There's this discourse out there where the right is acting like they're being victimized by the left, and anything you do can lead to that kind of argument. So I think there's some caution in order, but I also think where appropriate, if you're doing something in humanities and you have the ability to sign a novel or a book that deals with these issues, then why not do it?
Yeah, I actually, in one of the literature classes that I did teach, I taught this story called El Matadero, which translates basically to a butcher. And there's some really graphic scenes where they're talking about butchering animals, and they're actually comparing it to killing humans during one of the wars. It's set in Argentina. So I really brought up, how the cruelty of animals connected to the cruelty of humans in this story. So it can come up occasionally into what you sign, that kind of thing.
Another thing I think is really important also is, if you can, it's important to reach out to students that are vegan or in a vegetarian group, and to try to help them to create some memory for the group itself, or to try to help with some of the activities they have going on. At least at this school that we're at, oftentimes an email from a faculty member to a certain administrator in dining halls and other places like that will help more than it will from a student. Mm-hmm. And that's not fair, it's not just, but that's the way it is. And, we try to serve in that capacity to students when they need help. We try to advocate for them for vegan food in the dining hall, even though we don't eat in the dining hall that often. So we try to do that, and I think that's something that any professor can do if they're in a position like that.
Yeah, be an advisor to the student group.
Be an advisor,
once in a while, support.
Try to help them figure out ways to get money to bring speakers to campus. Yeah. Things like that you can do, and I think that's fine. And you could probably even list that as service on your CV. If you're an advisor to the group or things like that. So I think it's good to do that stuff, and I think if you can incorporate it in the classroom, it's worth doing. I admit that I'm in kind of a lucky position in that I'm in a fairly open department. I have a lot of freedom to teach what I want. And I'm lucky enough to be in this program where I can teach a class like this. I could teach a class in sociology about animal exploitation, but it would have a very different focus than the one I teach now. So I could probably teach a class like this down the road. And I'm kind of lucky in that sense. So hopefully that helped. If I know it's not any kind of miracle cure for what you're asking, but hopefully get you somewhere along the way. Okay, so here's our next email. Voicemail. Email, voicemail, email, voicemail. Voicemail.
Hey guys, my name is Sarah. I've been listening to your show, and I just think it's excellent. I was introduced to it a couple weeks ago from my boyfriend, and I just signed up to be on the forums as Vegan Revolution. But I just wanted to bring a suggestion to you guys. Maybe you could bring it up on one of your shows. I'm not sure, but I just thought I'd try anyway. I live in northeastern Pennsylvania, and we really have a problem with the people complaining about the deer population and wildlife population of the area. So they already hired people to come into my community and kill a lot of the deer, just because they say that the deer are overpopulating and eating the indigenous plants of the area, which really aren't indigenous because these people are planting their stupid flowers. If you want to plant your flowers, go plant them where you used to live, or plant them inside your house so the deer won't eat them. When you're taking away the land from these animals, because you want to build your big stupid house that shouldn't have been there in the first place, of course the deer are going to be hungry and want to eat. So we had town meetings about this problem, and the only people that stood up for the animals were the people in my family, because we moved there because we liked it. And I'm trying to think of what we can do, because they already wanted to try to do some kind of birth control or whatever for the deer. But I just think that's ridiculous in itself. I think that they should stop having people move in there. But as long as they're making profit off of it, they really don't care. So I was just wondering if maybe we could do some kind of a show on this, or give people information if they already have this kind of a problem as to what we can do to help the cause. Because in my area, there aren't a lot of people who support it. They're very against it. They're all hunters, and they really don't care. So I was just wondering if maybe you could bring up some suggestions to help us to get people to really understand, because it seems like they don't actually care, even with facts in their way. So I don't know. Maybe there is no solution to the problem, but I just thought it would be a start as to, maybe some people live in this type of environment too, and they might need some suggestions as well. Because I don't know about this animal birth control thing. I just kind of think it's ridiculous, because for the most part, I don't really think it works. But I think also having other people hunt animals to do your dirty work is also wrong. So that's it. Just wanted to say thanks a lot, guys, and your show is excellent. And I'm going to keep listening in, and that's it. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
We actually played a voicemail by Sarah before, and this is a really old one, so we're sorry that we haven't gotten to it until now. But now I think we're caught up. We have one more in the queue for next week, but that's it. So
that's a tough question, though.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, oh man. The obvious answer is what you actually said, is that you stop building developments, you stop encroachment, you stop sprawl, you stop all the shit that keeps sprawling into the habitat of deer.
Right.
And
or if you don't stop it, understand that you're going to have deer. I mean, just to put up with them, that they're not overpopulated. You're encroaching into their territory.
We have deer around here. How bad is it?
I know.
It's not that bad.
No.
I mean, we have deer in our backyard. It's not the end of the world.
No, they occasionally nibble on one of the plants in the garden.
Really? I mean, the problem is really, it's a human problem that is producing the deer problem.
Yes.
And I think, like humans always do, they want to solve the problem as quickly and expediently as possible. And they assume then that the problem are the deer, not them. And that's messed up.
Yeah. And another thing is that also the human-caused problem is that deer have very few natural predators anymore, because we've killed them too.
True, we've killed off all the predators.
So,
what is the solution? How do you get people to see this? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
I mean, how helpful are we?
Yeah, right. I mean, other than the fact that you've come up with the major arguments, already on your own, and I'm sure your family is showing that, look, the people that should see them as an asset maybe rather than as a detriment. Okay, they're an asset is because they're reminding you that you're living in a beautiful natural area, and so you're going to have the natural flora and fauna that come with that. And if you really want to deter them from eating your plants, don't shoot the deer. But there are, actually I had to look this up one time, because in case the deer started eating all our fruits and vegetables in our garden. there are things you can do that are non-intrusive and not harmful to the deer, just like spreading hot peppers, that kind of thing that you can do. Spray that on your plants if you really don't want them eating them.
Yep.
Make them eat. They'll go and eat something else instead. So there are things you can do. I mean, fences have to be incredibly high if you can use a fence to keep them out.
They have to be real high for deer.
But I mean, there are things you can do that don't harm the deer.
I know. But her question was, how do we get people to see that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, other than trying to get them to see, like I just said, see them as an asset, not as a detriment.
Why don't we turn this one over to our audience?
Okay.
So, why don't, if you have an idea about this, about how to approach this, in a way that maybe could get people to see exactly what's going on here, and in a way that would be beneficial to everyone, particularly the deer here, we'd love to hear it. You could email us, you can call us. We'd love to know, because frankly, it's a difficult position, because people really people get really attached to their stuff, and sadly, deer are viewed as kind of a nuisance, and I think that's so wrong on so many levels.
And people love to hunt.
And people like to hunt in rural areas a lot.
They see it as their right.
So I don't really know what the solution is, and I don't know how to get people to see deer as anything but a throwaway. That's really tough, but I think there's a way to do it. So how do we do it? I'm not positive yet, but we'll hopefully get some good feedback on that.
More people to watch Bambi? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not sure. So, I think that's it for the voicemails. Don't forget, you can call us at 267-295-1944. We could use some voicemails now. We would love to hear from you. We always love to hear from you, and we get them on. We get them on eventually.
Yep.
So that's it for the voicemails.
267-295-1944. Write the number down on your refrigerator door. Add the 001 country code if you call us from Vienna. That's how you leave a voicemail for good old Bob and Jenna.
Okay, so don't forget, 267-295-1944. And you can always find information about the show at podcast.veganfreak.com, which is our website. So now what we have for you is another vegan review segment.
Yes, thanks to Nell, our roving reporter.
Our roving reporter in the field.
Yes, we have a review of vegan red wine.
Yeah, so Nell, what Nell does is, if you don't know about these, she gets a bunch of friends together, she has a little party, and she actually gets people to fill out forms to rate the various products they're trying. So in the past, Nell has tried veggie burgers. What else?
Chocolate
and veggie burgers, and now this is the red wine review. So these sound like a lot of fun, actually.
I know.
I wish we lived closer to Nell, because I would go to these things.
It sounds like there's a lot of good food and everything there too. So
yeah, and so they're good reviews. And then Nell has a website, which we will link in the show notes, and which we talked about during our segment with her. So here's our segment with Nell.
All right, we're back with Nell and another one of her vegan reviews, and this week is vegan wine. So welcome back, Nell.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Nell, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Not bad.
Hanging in there.
We're anxious to hear about some vegan wines. So can you tell us a little bit about how many wines you set up and what kinds of things you had on the table and how it all went?
The party was great. It was so much fun. I had 10 people there. Some of my family came.
Wow.
A lot of my friends were there. I had 5 wines that were officially tested, and then I had bought a couple extras for myself, and I included those on the website too. But they weren't part of the regular review. They were kind of done before everybody showed up.
Nice.
Because we were impatient. But one of the favorite parts was how much food there was on the table. Because it wasn't a food review, I could go a little bit overboard with the other kinds of food on the table without ruining, the chocolates or the burgers. It was so much fun. Maisie Dotes, Carrie, she brought a vegan cake, which everybody died over.
Oh,
nice.
A friend of mine brought some bruschetta. I had guacamole and one of Dino's hummus recipes and Dino's demonic mushrooms recipe.
Oh man.
And there was more stuff too. What was it? Oh, Carrie also brought inari. And we all just sat at the table the whole time eating. And the wines that were tested, it was really funny how this was actually the least amount of comments that I've received on any of the parties, and I think it's because a lot of us don't drink a lot of wine regularly, so it's not like a normal, wine taste testing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I just rated them first through fifth because I didn't have a lot of similar reactions. And I think it's because people either didn't like red wines or they didn't like Merlot in general. Like I didn't think it was fair to compare them the way I usually do.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But the best one was the one that wasn't, in my opinion, was the one that wasn't even in the review. It was the one that we had before the party. But that one was more expensive than the other ones too, so I think that had a little bit to do with it.
Yeah.
So what were the different kinds you had?
I had Yellowtail Merlot, Fetzer Vineyards Cabernet, Fetzer Vineyards Merlot, Frey Pinot Noir. I don't really know how to say that.
That's right.
And okay, and Frey Cabernet.
Huh.
And the one thing everybody had in common was that they did not like Frey Cabernet.
Huh.
Nobody liked it, and the whole bottle was left at the end of the night.
Oh, no, that's not a good sign.
That's a bad sign.
No. And I think the only person who had a glass was Jackson, and she said that she only suffered through it, that she just felt bad not drinking it. But I had so much wine, she should have just dumped it out and, started over. But the Yellowtail Merlot was the favorite. That bottle was gone pretty quickly. Everybody really liked that one. And the Fetzers are good too. Those were the next two popular, and the Freys really were the lowest.
I've been wondering how they are because they're the organic wines, right?
Yeah, Fetzer's actually organic also, but
Okay.
they don't label themselves organic. But on the internet, I did some research, and they are an organic vineyard.
None of these wines
Frey's
are...
the only one.
I'm sorry.
Frey's the only one that labels organic.
I see. Okay.
None of these wines are labeled as vegan, right? They're just...
No.
You did some research and found that out.
Yeah, I used a couple different websites, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I'll link them in the on the website when I put that up. But I used the ones off of your website through the liquor link, and Jeans, who's on the forum once in a while, he's actually going to get a website up that's either only wine or wine and beer. He's going to have one up soon, and then just doing a Google search, really.
Nice.
But it grossed everybody out when they asked me why wine isn't vegan.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say, do you really want to know? And then I'd wait for them to think and answer because I wasn't going to tell them. Because I felt bad telling everybody.
Yeah, well, actually...
But they asked.
Yeah, could you... I'm not sure if all of our listeners know why wines aren't vegan, so maybe could you explain a little bit about why they're not?
I don't know a lot of the exact terms, but I know that a lot of wine and beer is, I think it's filtered with isinglass, which is fish bladders, egg whites, or sometimes I think it's bone char is also included in the process, but I can't remember if that's only for beer or if that's for beer and wine.
I don't know.
I think that might be for wine. I'm not sure, though. But I know wine has all sorts of strange stuff that they put in it. Like they can use blood and all kinds of strange colorings that come from animals. And
Well, the thing with some of the red wines that we, when we were in Spain, we toured some wine places there. And they used to use, I think, egg whites to clarify the wines. But none of the egg whites end up back in the wine. Right?
Supposedly, yeah.
So, but still, if you're trying to do as much as you can and reasonably, it's easy enough to avoid some of these things. Yeah, why not, right?
Yeah, and it's, from what I understand, it's the methods that don't include any of the animal products are just as cost effective. Yellowtail does it, and they don't have a whole line of vegan. It's just certain ones are vegan. Where the other ones, I think they are all vegan, like the Frey line and the Fetzer line are vegan. But I went down to a couple different wine stores and I tried looking on my own, with the printouts, and I was going insane because there's so many wines out there. And it was the week before, and of course I hadn't prepared or done anything. And I went in, couldn't find anything, and my dad actually sent me to a place in Shrewsbury, Mass, just a liquor store, and I asked them, and of course they didn't know off the top of their head, but I just gave them the list, and they went and got everything for me.
Nice.
Here, you should try these. And there was another liquor store right down the street from me, and they had a lot too. But it gets so overwhelming. You know, you read the label, but which list is it on? So I forget when I remember names, if it was the good list or the bad list.
Sure. Yeah. It doesn't help that there are a lot of different lists out there, and that each liquor store is going to be different. So they're going to carry all different brands, and so you're comparing a lot of different things. It does get overwhelming. But it's nice to know that at least there are something like Fetzer's, pretty commonly found wine. It's nice to know that there are vegan options available that aren't, you don't have to look for the Fry organic necessarily, but you can find some pretty big wines out there.
Right, and they were all right in the same price. I think they were either $10 or $12, the 5 that I tried. So it's not like, we're talking about expensive bottles.
Now, that's actually a really reasonable price. I mean, $10 to $12 is what you would spend on a halfway, a drinkable bottle anyhow. So that's good. Yellowtail you can get anywhere too. I mean, we can even get it up here.
Yep, those are very common. I always thought that they were bad. Like, people would make fun of them for being like cheap wine, I thought, but they're really good.
Well, I have to share with everybody a little secret about Jenna.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Jenna can't stand Yellowtail wine.
I can't drink Yellowtail.
Really? How come?
It has very little to do with the quality of the wine, I think, and it has more to do with the fact that at one time Jenna drank probably several bottles of it.
I did drink several bottles of it. I had a little bit too much, and it didn't sit well.
So,
bad experience.
Everybody has a drink that they do that with.
Oh, yeah. That happened to be mine. And I have barely drank any red wine since then. That's a couple of years ago, so...
Yeah, that was a good about 3 years ago. She had a little too much red wine. Well, Yellowtail in particular. And so since then, whenever she sees a bottle of Yellowtail, she just makes this kind of face. It's just amazing. Like when you were mentioning Yellowtail, she's across the table from me, and I could see her just going with this like face, like. I don't really have any huge problem with it, but I just thought I would.
Fetzer's a little bit cheaper, and it's just as good.
Okay,
there you go.
That's good to know.
And there's no bad memories attached to Fetzer.
Yes.
So getting back to the wines that you did try, what were some of the comments as to why the people didn't like the Fry?
Most of them were just ew and gross, and that's really icky. It really wasn't anything. Like, one person said it tasted like grape soda. But most of the people just put down numbers, and nobody really had anything to say about any of them. So I only have like maybe 1 or 2 comments, and they're very basic, where usually I have these, big stories. My friend Wendy, actually, she was part of the pre-testing, and so she was pretty well off when she got the piece of paper, and she likes to tell stories. So hers is like 2 pages worth of review, but it doesn't have anything to do with the wine. So that's not included, but the people who did leave comments, they were just basic, like if it was smooth or fruity or leaves an aftertaste, but the Cabernet from Prey was not a very descriptive one.
Well, it is hard to know.
I hate saying bad things.
Yeah, but it is hard to know like what to say about wines, because for me it's like, okay, it's too sweet, it's dry, fruity. I don't know what descriptors to use, because I don't know. I've read some wine reviews in like the New York Times and stuff, and they all sound really snooty. So they're like, hint of blackberry and all these different spices. I'm like, okay, whatever.
So never do that.
Yeah.
So were the Fry wines, were they generally a more dry wine, or were they sweet? What was the?
They were bitter and tart. Those are a couple of the words that were repeated. The Pinot Noir was good. That one people did like, but it's different than Cabernet and Merlot, which I had on the other brands. So, but a lot of bitter and aftertaste.
Interesting that it would come up bitter. That's a surprising thing for wine, actually.
Yeah, I think that's why it just struck people like so quickly.
I kind of like wines that are really tannic and kind of big, that have a kind of not harsh taste. I mean, because the taste shouldn't be harsh, but I like the ones that have a kind of powerful taste in the mouth and are quite dry. Were there any of the wines that were like that?
I don't know. I don't. I think the yellowtail was probably the closest to that. My dad likes wines a lot like that, and he really liked the yellowtail Merlot because it was deeper. He kept saying.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that you served the stuff with a lot of food, and do you think that the food combinations that you had that they went well with what you had?
I hope so. I don't usually know how to put food and drinks together because usually my friends don't really care. But I had a good combo. Like the hummus didn't go over well. I think it was because it was heavier with the wine. But I had cilantro salsa and guacamole. Those went over really well. And there were a lot of a veggie platter that completely disappeared. So I think those were the foods that everybody was looking for to go with the wine.
Excellent. So are you going to post some of the stuff on the site?
Yes. Yeah. I'll have it up by the time the podcast is out.
And the site is veganreviews.blogspot.com, right? Because we messed up a link to it before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what it said, but yeah, it got fixed.
Okay, good.
We usually fix our mistakes. We try to.
Yes.
Yeah. So, any ideas for upcoming reviews?
I think it's going to be cookies.
Ooh.
We kind of decided at the end of the night after we've all had a lot of drinks. So it was between ice cream and cookies.
Ooh.
So
like store-bought cookies, you mean?
Store-bought, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do one in March. I think I'm going to wait till April or early May to do the next one. There's just a lot going on.
Sure.
So.
Cool.
And then the only other one that's in the lineup is beer. And when Joe comes out for the meetup this summer, that's when he wants to do beer, is when he's here.
Excellent. Actually, you could also do a white wine party.
Yeah, that'll come up too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Sounds great.
Cookies are easier to find, though. So
Sure.
I got a little overwhelmed with finding the wine, so I'm going to go with easy.
Yeah. Well, beer is, even PBR is vegan,
Yeah.
I've never had that.
You never had PBR?
No.
It's kind of like water.
It's better.
No, it's an okay. I mean, the way I would describe it is like a beer that you can drink. It's extremely smooth and it just goes down real easy. I wouldn't drink it like if I'm looking for a great beer, but it's certainly drinkable. And for a cheap beer, hey. Yeah, well, we're looking forward to that, and we love these reviews, and we get a lot of great feedback on them. If people want to get in touch with you, they can do that through the website, right?
Yes.
Excellent. And if we have any folks out there who want to send you cookies for reviewing, they can get in touch with you through the website to send you stuff too, right?
Indeed.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Nice. Well, thanks, Nell. We really appreciate it.
Sure, anytime.
And like we said, you can find all the Nell stuff on that site, the veganreviews.blogspot.com. I get so confused.
It is plural or is not?
I forget.
Okay.
Well,
we'll find it.
Vegan review.
We'll
vegan
find
reviews.
the old link and then put the old link there.
Yeah.
That we used the last time, so we don't screw it up.
The link will be in the show notes. So you can always find it in the show notes at podcast.veganfreak.com. And you can get a hold of Nell there. And thanks again for everything. Wait. See, nice weather means that more people come out in the ATVs and things. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty loud. Yeah. So, anyway. Thanks, Nell.
Yeah, thanks, Nell.
Sure, anytime. Thanks.
Okay, so that's our interview with Nell, and that's it for this week. You can contact us. podcast@veganfreak.com is our email address.
That's right. And our website is podcast.veganfreak.com.
And you can call us.
267-295-1944.
So we'll be back with some interviews with, typical vegan stuff.
We got all kinds of stuff in the pipeline. We're always thinking about new things we can do for you. And if you want to send us some ideas, the things you really want to hear on the show or things you'd like us to talk about, you can get in touch.
All right.
And we've got some good stuff lined up in the future. And we would love to get your subscription dollars too. I mean, if you're out there thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't subscribe, maybe someone else has already done it, all that, we could really use the support. Particularly as we have this one big piece of equipment coming up. So we'd love, if you're thinking you might subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. So
Thanks
that's
again
it.
for listening.
We'll be back next week. Talk to y'all later.